My guest now on CEO Hub is Amy Smith, the CEO of Jenny Craig in Australia. Amy, welcome to CEO Hub.
Thank you.
Now, your previous life before this job was in advertising, where you were managing some of the biggest brands in the world. What are the similarities between managing a brand, such as Honda or one of the ones you managed, and internally managing a culture as a CEO?
Well, I guess, firstly, I think in a world where pretty much everything's commoditised and everything works pretty well, and you know, you've kind of got to get your head around the fact that the brand is probably the single biggest asset that you've got, but it is not a wall to hide behind. That my view on brands has always been that they're a window, and that it's an inside-out, I guess, job to be done to create a brand that really has any degree of authenticity.
Yeah, because what you've done and what I like about the way you approached that and talk about it since is the way that you talk about a brand is not simply just a picture on the wall. It's about what does the business stand for, and you've kind of I guess done that in your previous work in advertising. Tell us a bit about what you did and what brands you managed.
I was lucky enough to work with Nike for 10 years, and I would say most of the stuff that I've learned about branding came from Nike, because Nike never really made ads per se. I mean, they made a lot of advertising, but what they stood for, with a certain degree of irreverence and a certain attitude, for want of a better word, is something that was all pervasive throughout their entire culture. So it went down to the days why they chose a McEnroe versus, you know, somebody else, why they selected the athletes, why they got behind certain sports, why they bought Manchester United. It was all about, they had to, I guess, spiritually reflect the core values of Nike, which is a brand that's all about empowerment and about working with you to find out what you're capable of. Adidas all about winning, winner takes all. Nike is actually a bit more of an internal journey. So many aspects of that brand, I guess, led themselves to having a conversation about branding that was not about let's make an ad or let's run a promotion. It was more about creating a movement, something that people could join, not just consume. And I think great brands do that. I think they're brands that you want to join. And I think with Jenny Craig, one of the things that, you know, what I inherited was a very tired brand that someone's great aunt had sort of done once or whatever, but it didn't have any relevance. And I think the biggest challenge for businesses, not just brands, is to stay relevant.
Jenny actually was someone's great aunt.
Well, that's right. Yeah, that's right. But you know, relevance is our biggest challenge, not just as brand experts, but as CEOs, because if you're not relevant, you can't hire great people, you can't, you know, innovate, you can't do a whole lot of stuff. So step one is to really, I think, look at an inside-out view and think of a brand as a conversation, and then be quite honest and brave about the conversation that you're having right now, and whether or not you're actually suffering from something which I call brand withdrawal, which is where we were at. People knew the brand, had plenty of awareness, but they were withdrawing from it. And I think, you know, in the same way that I lived through with Nike, all the sweatshop scandals and things like that, what we realised is that people just don't consume your advertising or your marketing or your product in silos. They see the whole lot. It would be impossible, for example, for Qantas to sit there today and think that, you know, just advertising is going to, I guess, solve everything when you've got problems here, there and everywhere, because as consumers, we see it all holistically. In many ways, we're integrated, but our branding experts often think in silos. So I think it's a holistic approach that you have to have, and that's hard. I didn't want Jenny Craig to stand for something that was just too. It would have been impossible, it would have been unbelievable for it to. So I've chosen for it to stand as the human face of weight loss, because that's where we came from. Our name is somebody's signature, and that therefore humanity and authenticity, whether it's a celebrity or anything else, is what we have to do.
So when you were managing Nike and the other brands, did you think then what it would be like to be a CEO, and did you have in your mind how you would be a CEO, and was it different to what you expected?
I actually didn't think that what I knew would be enough. I always wanted to be, but I thought, well, you know, most of my clients, the CEOs of many of my clients, and I'm talking Ford, eventually I worked with Ford, Kraft, Nestle, Kellogg, I've worked with, as you know, Honda, I also worked with BMW, with Land Rover. So even things like working with Kimberly-Clark or Pfizer. So I've done almost every category in 20 years of advertising, and I'd sit with the CEOs and they'd say, oh, those marketing people, the flower arrangers, the colour-inners. And I sat there realising that actually the biggest problem, I think, is that we don't realise at a CEO level how important your brand and its conversations, given that it's a window, and technology now with the internet means that obviously people can walk through that and look around you.
But how important is that conversation internally in the leadership of the group? And how do you convey it to the group internally?
Well, one of the most interesting things we did when we sort of evolved into the digital space and we opened up forums was marketing really went from being a department to everybody's business. Because when you open up a conversation and say 10,000 people a week are on my forums, on my website, and they don't necessarily confine their conversations to what they think of the ads or this or that. They're talking to other clients, they're saying, did you like this? Did you like the chicken fettuccine? I didn't like the fish and chips. I'm not sure about the whatever. So we realised that it went way beyond just what they thought about the marketing to giving us active research. Everyday active research. Should we be prepared to listen to it? And I also, once I got the head of food, the head of operations, even the head of HR, and everybody involved, everyone kind of became obsessed with the forum. It was like, what have they written? And suddenly we realised that we'd gone from being a business that was very much focused on what we were doing behind closed doors to doing what I had begged them to do and said was absolutely necessary for this brand to do, which is look outside the window and the front door, because that's where all the answers are. And so our forum, which is basically listening to the river, I guess, is how we got the whole business internally to focus on the customer. And that was a big turning point. And now, you know, we've learned a number of things, like when inevitably in a service business things go wrong and you don't always get it right, but we've learned that when you have problems like that, you can actually build loyalty. You know, it's an opportunity, depending on how quickly you resolve problems, to build loyalty with a customer and things like that. So I guess the biggest thing was to have a good long look at where we were as a brand, accept that where we were at was where we were at and that's not where we wanted to be. And then what did we want to stand for and how did we feel we were going to enrich the world? We have a mission which is to fight obesity and prevent it in future generations. So I start every single sentence, doesn't matter where I am, even in the finance department or wherever, saying, okay, how many lives did we change this week? How many people didn't we get to? And how many people did we lose? And why? So we constantly talk about everything we do in the context of changing lives and that cause. And I think going forward, I really believe, particularly in the next 10 years, it's going to be very tough out there. I think the businesses that have meaningful places to work, as in where people can go and work and feel that they're making a difference and feel connected to something that's bigger than just the job, my personal belief is that's going to help us win, because ultimately people want to do something that feels like it's doing good.
And do you think that having more women at the top will also help you win?
Well, I'm for the first time in my life, I'm in a business where I'm surrounded by women.
Yeah,
you know,
and you've come from a male environment.
And I'm very much a male environment. And I've had to really learn how to work with women, because I'm probably, you know, I've had 20 years in the trenches of rough and tumble with, you know, with guys. And so, you know, that's been quite an interesting transition. I think it's probably safe to say that there are huge strengths of both. You know, I think diversity is absolutely critical, and you've got to have in any organisation a meaningful amount. 20% is the minimum that I would say of anything, you know, but we don't, that's not where I came from. So there are times though where I look around my room and we've now got pretty much 50-50 on the exec team of male and female. But as I say to the guys who are in that room, you know, they pretty much have to get in touch with their feminine side quite quickly at Jenny, because only 20% of our customers are male and 80% are female, although we're changing that. in the beginning we didn't have any male customers, so that's a good thing. But a lot of the issues around weight and weight management are all around, I guess, emotional eating and things that, you know, often I think for guys, they're like, oh, wow, is that why my wife eats so much ice cream? Like, we have to have these very open conversations about things called feelings. And I think that it's actually made us better to have that combination. But there are times where I look around and I think, oh, God, can we just all, you know, feel less and just get on with it? But the business is about managing people's, I guess, feelings about where they're at and how they want to change and helping them remove the obstacles. So I'm probably in the most perfect job because, you know, we can be female in that environment and men can relax enough to actually explore that as well.
It's great. It's great talking to you, Amy. Thanks for coming on CEO.
No problem. No problem.